You're now listening to the Engage the Rockies podcast, your go-to podcast for local and state issues concerning Colorado.
Hello, Rockies. This is Sarah Jane Maroney, your host for Engage the Rockies Week in Review for the second week of April in 2025. First up, Governor Polis has signed SB 25003 law. This is a restricting of semi-automatic weapons. So anything that has a gas-operated detachable magazine, any semi-automatic handguns, lots and lots of them basically, are now you would need to get a eligibility card, and this eligibility card comes with a fee, and all of the money for these fees they have taken out of the Parks and Outdoor Recreation. Now, once you pay that fee, supposedly that money goes back into pay back the Parks and Outdoor Recreation. And the sheriff's offices will be required to check that a person doesn't have any criminal convictions pending, et cetera, before they allow this eligibility card in order to take a class. And then once the class has been scheduled and passed, and this class needs to be taken every 5 years in order to continue to complete the firearms safety course. And in terms of obtaining and having this weapon, you still need to retake the class if you have made this purchase since. So it's creating quite a lot of furrow around Colorado. Governor Polis also visited Colorado Springs on Wednesday on his way to a space symposium at the Broadmoor. He stopped at Safe Passage, which is a children's advocacy center and is the only site where you can get all the services in the same building from multiple agencies, law enforcement, child welfare, and all of the offices work collectively. The El Paso County Commissioners, city leaders in Colorado Springs, Fountain, Manitou Springs, Green Mountain Falls, Callahan, Monument, and Palmer Lake all approved a resolution to honor April as National Child Abuse Prevention Month. And Safe Passage is an organization that receives $133,000 annually from the state, but that's a drop in the bucket compared to their operating budget of $1.6 million. And they are doing great work and have lots of statistics that show how helpful it is to have everything in one building where all the services can be accessed. This is the 10-year anniversary of the Colorado Child Abuse and Neglect Hotline, 844-CO-4KIDS. And it has fielded more than 1 million calls, and about 350,000 of those were deemed to need further assessment. And the inspiration for the pinwheels that are planted outside the lawn in Centennial Hall is that a national initiative was launched in 2008 by Prevent Child Abuse in America organization. And so that's what all the pinwheels outside Centennial Hall are. And yet another lawmaker in Colorado has been investigated for allegedly mistreating aides. This time it is Colorado Springs Representative Regina English. A bipartisan legislative committee asked a third party to do an investigation after an aide accused Representative English of misconduct. Speaker McCluskey was reached out to and asked how the alleged conduct was significant enough to require attention of leadership, but wasn't sufficient to violate House policy. And Speaker McCluskey declined to discuss or confirm any details related to the investigation, but said, quote, "I do think in light of what we've seen now in the Senate with a member and concerns that were raised by aides in that chamber, that it is over this interim, it may be time for us to revisit these policies to ensure that they continue to work effectively for both those who feel that there's been a violation and for those who feel they've been complained against," end quote. Representative English has had 7 aides during her first 2 years in the legislature, which is an unusually fast turnover, even in this high-pressured environment. On Sunday, the Colorado legislature met. Yes, Sunday. Obviously, this is not a normal workday, but they called a special session on a Sunday and went through 4 bills limiting debate to only 2 hours each. HB 25-1309 requires all Colorado regulated insurance plans to cover gender-affirming care. SB 25129 blocks Colorado entities from cooperating with out-of-state investigations into gender-affirming care or abortion-related healthcare. So this means an out-of-state telehealth on abortion pills. SB 25183, which is taxpayer-funded abortions via Medicaid and CHP. And finally, HB 251312, expanding the legal definition of discrimination to include misgendering and dead naming. And this allows the courts should consider such acts in court custody decisions. So therefore, if you misnamed or dead named your child in a court custody hearing, your children could be taken away from you. And this one has actually garnered quite a bit of national news. And all four of these bills have passed through that chamber and have moved on to the next one. Yet again, the possibility of moving U.S. Space Command from Colorado Springs to Alabama has raised its ugly head. An Alabama lawmaker on a podcast said that he expects the announcement to come soon. On Thursday, Republican lawmakers from Colorado met to discuss this, and all of them echoed that they did not feel like that was going to happen, and the Space Command should remain in Colorado Springs. One of the representatives indicated that they had been speaking with President Trump and that relocation is not a good idea at this time. Representative Crank took to X and said that space threats from China and Russia were unequivocally greater than 4 years ago, and that we cannot afford to weaken our space capabilities or delay the creation of the dome when there is too much at stake, end quote. And finally, Colorado lawmakers on Tuesday began debate about SB 25276. This is a bill that would allow criminal defendants living unlawfully in the U.S. to petition the courts to vacate a guilty plea or for misdemeanors under certain conditions. And it also penalizes childcare and public schools that provide information or allow immigration agents into certain areas. And this is being pushed by the Democrats that are in power in Colorado because of the lax policies of the previous administration, which saw some 42,000 immigrants arrive in the last 3 years to Denver. The bill would prohibit local law enforcers from arresting or detaining individuals based on immigration detainer requests. So this is sort of handcuffing the local law enforcement in terms of their communications. The fiscal price tag on this bill that deals with data and who can have it and when they can have it is $500,000 from the general funds. And as you will hear, we have a $1.2 billion shortfall. So please tune in on Monday and hear our interesting conversation with Senator Kirkmeyer about the Joint Budget Committee. And those are the top stories for the second week of April in 2025. Thanks for joining us. Please remember to like and subscribe.
Thank you for listening to the Engage the Rockies podcast, your go-to podcast for local and state issues concerning Colorado.